Good day, everyone. Welcome to our reporting about Turnberry 6 Rules of Teaching Grammar. Now that we are here, let me first introduce my name. I am Gila Marie Maturan, and the other members are Miss Mindanya, the second presenter. Miss Mindanya, the third presenter is Miss Medelo, and the fourth presenter is Miss Maningo, and the fifth presenter is Miss Higana, and the last presenter or the sixth presenter will be Miss Lancho. So now we are presenting our topics about introduction about we are presenting our topics, but first I will be the one to tackle my to tackle the objectives, the objective of teaching grammar, and the introduction of the introduction of the rule of context. Then the rest are the other members. Then the rules of teaching grammar can be classified into three. So this chapter, you will be able to explain the different rules of teaching grammar, the contract narrative situations that present the different rules in teaching grammar, and then write a sample lesson guide applying the different rules. Now let's move forward to introduction. Introduction. So the main point of this lesson is, or why do we need to tackle about the rules of teaching grammar? Because this chapter explores various consideration in teaching grammar, no? Then it introduces the rules, not the grammar, but of teaching grammar. But this lesson highlights the meaning making is an important aspects of learning that the grammar of language. And it should not be focused only on the sentence, but on the meaningful use of language. Lastly, it is not enough that you have memorized the rules of correct usage. The challenge of these rules is, how do we translate these technicalities into chewable chunks? Now let's move forward. We can think or question about who proposed the rules of teaching grammar. In the area of English language, Scott Turnberry is an internationally recognized as an academic and teacher trainer in the field of English language. So teaching now, he proposed the 6 rules of teaching grammar, which is the context, the use, the economy, the relevance, and the nurture rather, and the appropriacy. So he also highlighted that is language teaching is grammar teaching, no? Then teacher training is training teachers to teach grammar. Again, then teacher training is training teachers to teach grammar. So it means na teacher training is an course to train teacher to teach grammar. Now, let's welcome our discussion of the first rule of teaching grammar. It is the rule of context. The rule of context, it means to start by finding what they already know, and don't assume that the grammar of English is wholly different system. From the learner's mother tongue, exploit the common ground. And teaching grammar in context, if you have to take an item of context in order to draw attention to it, it ensures that it is recontextualized as soon as possible. Similarly, teach grammatical forms in association with their meanings. So the choice of one grammatical form over another is always determined by the meaning the speaker or writer wishes to convey. So the teacher grammar in context will help the learners to acquire new grammar structure and forms. So the rule of context, it means it is very important as a teacher, you will be helping them to internalize these principles, and let us not try to go for the ready-made solutions, by using a worksheet from book, then it will make very little differences as a children use of language and the meaningless for those learners who are not yet able to take abstract way. So teaching grammar in context, you will in context will help the learners to acquire new grammatical structures and forms. So that the rule of context, so the rules of context, it means in teaching grammar, it is to set and to integrate into other aspects of curriculum. So I think we need to consider that this kind of example. These are the creative writing. These are the creative writing, then the analytical reading rather than a standalone activity. How do we apply the rule? So the learner context is defined as a situation in which something is learned to understood, a learning that has impact of how something is learned. Learners are give grammatical structures in context, so they will be able to master the language better. No, then we can ask about we can ask in our mind that how does the context apply in teaching grammar, or how can we use context in teaching grammar? So teaching grammar in context involves making connections, no, making connections. Then between grammatical patterns and the meaning of text. So meaning of text, just like wider and contextual aspects such as genre, audience, subject, and purpose. A reader's feelings and response to a text is a potential authorial motivation for making decisions about language choices. So a contextual grammar is a pedagogy leads with concepts and ideas rather than the grammar itself. For example, in this screen, discussing their feelings response to a text. For example, a teaching activity might begin with students discussing their feelings, any feelings and responses to a text, no? It can be happen in real life situations, so they can express their feelings and then they can respond to a text. Then going back to the text to explore why the grammatical patterns made them feel and think the way they did, no? Then so here it is able to explore the grammatical patterns of the text and used. So reader responses must hold the text to account. So example, they must be able to explore the grammatical patterns of a text and use them patterns to help express to explain their responses. So the use of meta language means form language or set of terms. It is used for the description or analysis of another language or grammatical terminology. It is important because it provides a common shared language which allows the students or teachers in a more accurate, precise, and efficient with the way they're gonna talk about language itself. So I think that would be all, and I think that would be all about my topic about the rule of context. The next presenter will be Miss Mindanya. Please proceed.
My name is Eileen Danya, and I will be going to discuss the second rule of teaching grammar, which is the rule of use. So what is this rule? Next slide, please. Teach grammar in order to facilitate the learner's comprehension and production of real language rather than as an end itself. always provide opportunities for learners to put the grammars to some communicative use. So the second rule of teaching grammar, according to Thornbury, is to facilitate the learner's comprehension and production of real language and putting those into communicative use. When learners are provided with enough opportunities where they can apply or use their knowledge about grammar meaningfully, they will most probably be fluent in their target language. Communicating in their target language will then be comfortable and easier for them. Next slide, please. So basically, the rule of use focuses on usage over terminology. Research has repeatedly shown that teaching grammar as an isolated set of terms and rules to memorize is ineffective and can actually deter students from writing and performing communicative tasks. When learners are taught about grammars as an isolated set of terms and rules to memorize, it actually limits them to expand their knowledge about it because somehow it deters them from stepping up to learn beyond the rules and the terms they have memorized. Putting what they have learned or memorized into communicative use will most probably be challenging because there are terms and rules that are not applicable in some contexts. So have you noticed when you already memorized something and it gets hard to keep it off your mind? It somehow keeps on reminding you, and that often hinders you from learning or moving forward to learn something new. That also happens when learners are taught about grammar as an isolated set of terms and rules that needs to be memorized. So by helping students to recognize, practice, and use grammar for authentic purposes, grammatical awareness can be built, as well as their grammatical skills. Using grammar for authentic process or purposes, means using it on academic context and most especially on communicative situations. The rule of use in teaching grammar reminds language teachers to teach grammar for communicative use. Next slide, please. So the objectives of the rule is first, to hasten the learner's comprehension and production of language. This rule will make the learners understand grammar better and be able to produce language that they can use in different contexts. Next slide. Second objective is learners should be able to incorporate the grammar they've learned fluently into communicative use. With the rule of use, learners are expected to put their acquired learnings about grammar into some communicative use. So this will be the process or the success of the rule. If the learners will be able to apply their learnings into communicative contexts or situations. Next slide, please. So the final goal or the main goal of the rule is to equip the students with a valuable communication tool. As what I have said earlier, learners will be able to communicate in their target language more fluently and comfortably if they are given opportunities to apply their learnings in communicative situations or real-life situations. Next slide, please. As future educators, we have to know how to use how to incorporate the rule of use in teaching grammar in order for us to have an idea on how we can do or we can better teach grammar to our future students. So first, here are some ways on how to act in accordance with the rule of use when teaching grammar. First, provide for authentic samples of language use anchoring on students' context. When we say authentic samples, these are examples that we can actually observe in real life situations. To put it simply, language teachers should provide samples that are realistic. Second is encourage students to identify usage pattern on how target language is actually used. Learners should not only be provided with realistic samples, but also encouraged to identify patterns on how the target language is actually used on actual situations. So third is to use varied activities like listening to audio samples of native and non-native speakers of the language. Through these activities, learners will be able to identify how a native and a non-native speaker use the language on actual situations. They can also gain ideas on how they can meaningfully use the target language. Next slide, please. Next is provide opportunities for students to share ideas and insights and give helpful feedback to improve language use. It is important to give students opportunities to share their ideas and insights because it is one way for them to improve their communicative skills using their target language. Feedbacks are also needed to improve language use of the students. And lastly, employ communicative approaches. Next slide, please. So here are activities that uses communicative approach. We can incorporate this when using the rule of use in teaching grammar. These activities are role playing, interviews, and opinion sharing. So utilizing these activities can enhance students' use of the target language in communicative situations. Since these activities focuses more on the application of what they have learned, their observations and ideas about grammar and the target language itself. Next slide, please. That is all for my part, and the third rule or the next rule of grammar will be discussed to you by Miss Mylene Madelo.
To fulfill the rule of use, be economical, which means economizing on presentation time in order to provide maximum practice time. With grammar, a little can go long a way. Means, with grammar, we can reach more opportunities and abundance by using and economizing others. Second is consider the two W's and one is why, what, and how, in connection to the rules of economy. First is language is primarily a skill that should be practiced and used. Means we should be practiced to make the language real or organized. Second is just studying grammar. Grammar will not in itself enable you to use it. Means student language practice may be limited if what we have learned will merely serve as rules to understood. Third is providing for more and more input will still be sufficient. It should be comprehensible, thus a content or jam-packed syllables are necessarily guarantee language to application. Fourth is students who are at intermediate level and beyond need more opportunities for practice rather than presentation of rules. The student who is intermediate can have more opportunities by practicing through the presentation of rules can have sufficient effective. The second one is let's answer in connection to the rules of economy by what? Economy presentation time in order to provide maximum practice time. With grammar, a little can go long a way. This is according to Thornberry 2004. The English curriculum should be disconjuncted, focusing on relevant grammar concepts. It should be comprehensive language input that can be understood by listeners despite them not understanding all the words and structures in it. It's described as one like bug that of the learners if it can only just be understood. This is according to Kashi 2002. Providing comprehensively input and more time for language practice helps students acquire language naturally rather than learn it consciously. As we have input, we will have acquired more language then naturally practice it will help us to be more certain as a learner or as a listener. As language learners, the target language increases the level of comprehension. Means we should have the target of language or setting of goals so that strengthen their capabilities and grammar skills, especially to those future educators. The last one is teachers should be able to how to present grammar rules efficiently, then provide more time for students to apply these rules in communicative tasks. Communicative task is the best way that helps students to be learn more about their speaking and their capabilities and grammar usage. It can be have in the classroom which is communicative task technique. Now let's answer the how in connection to the rules of economy. To plan your grammar usage well. In connection to the rules of economy, sometimes the one is stipulated in the curriculum well maybe too much or too little depending on student level, start where students are. Second is be clear with your goal. What is your goal? It should be certain grammar that at a point for student to gain a deeper understanding on the concept, for student to use the grammar point to complete the task. Should be clear with your goal so that reaching the capability of using grammar can be the quick way. The third one is lesson guide plan, which is well helpful to this student or the future educator in creating relevant activities for the topics that are enough for the task time. Last is visual aid. It is it belongs to the graphic organizer, like for example mind map, concept map, like chart, concept map, mind map helps create visual image to have effective way of organizing information because this is the best way that students will understood what graphic organizer can have. There is some example I put into my slide. It is The Pale Pale Heart. It is a story by Edgar Allan Poe. Let's just imagine the first box is it have the main idea, then the third, fourth, and fifth is the supporting idea one, supporting idea two, and supporting idea two. It's just imagine and to the listener you can read The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe by searching in the Google. After reading the story, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, use this guide to delve deeper into the main idea. These are the tricky prepositions. First is into versus into. Into means motion towards the inside of a place and elsewhere. Like for example, we grab into the city. Second is into. Double click by replacing to with an order to. Like for example, customer came to order a pizza. Second example is ask for versus ask to. Ask for means to replace an object. Like for example, ask for a donut. The second is ask to means to request an action. Like for example, she will ask to ride horses for her birthday. The third is think of versus think about. First is think of means includes invention or a specific choice. Means, like for example, think of a number between 1 to 10. The second is think about means conceive that something was pondered for a period of time. Like for example, the hat my hat made me think you about made me think about you. You pop up into my mind. Next slide please. The fourth one is heard of versus heard about. Heard of means speaker is at least aware of something. Like for example, I have heard of the band Orange Waffle. Second is heard about. It means hence the speaker knows more details. I have, like for example, I have heard about the band Orange Waffle. The fifth one is among versus between. Among means used for multiple nouns. Like for example, an each stood among the trees. And the last one is between. It means used for pronouns. Like for example, shop, shop is between the library and avenue. That's all, and I am hoping that you understand what I am saying.